everyone. Amanda Williams, MD, MPH, here with you today. I want to talk about our genetic testing that we have available for you. This is kind of my wheelhouse, my passion. I absolutely love genetics. Way back when I was in school, many, many moons ago, I actually had a really strong interest in going into genetics. So I took, genetics courses and I just fell in love with it because it's so incredibly interesting. So we look at technology on one hand, let's say computers, which is kind of like my fear. But then we look at genetics and then I thought to myself, wait, so our genes are basically kind of like the motherboard of the body. So without our genes, we're not going to have the ability for certain functions to actually be performed in the body. So we know that the genes, this genetic makeup that we all come designed with, are really, really important and they dictate our overall health. So we think about like a computer program, for example. And if something goes awry, then your program maybe won't work. And everyone's experienced that. You go to log into your computer, you go to open up one of your programs, and it maybe doesn't open properly, or it's skewed, or something just isn't right with it. Well, the same thing can happen with our genes. So, the more that we know about our genes, the better we can do when it comes to optimizing our overall health. So, what do I actually mean by this? Well, one thing that we know about genes is we can't change our genes. We can't say, well, I don't like that gene, let me get a new one. No, that's the gene that we came equipped with, so we are actually stuck with them. However, if we know that we have a genetic mutation, or as they like to call it nowadays, to make it sound nicer, a variant. If we have a gene variant, meaning that there's a base pair that is switching, I'm not going to get into the heavies of the actual DNA, RNA, and protein pathway with you, but if we have a base pair and we think about all of the different bases, we think about nucleotides, for example, we have our nucleotide complex. So that's, when everyone's seen the double helix and it's those little end caps. So within that, that's what the genetic information. So we think about that computer program. If there is a mismatching that occurs, then perhaps what it is supposed to do is not going to work exactly properly, which can create havoc in our health. But if we know about these little mismatches, then what we can do is we can try to skirt around those by making different changes, whether that be lifestyle, dietary, or supplementation. So let me give you a perfect example. Take the MTHFR pathway, which is very important when it comes to the way that the body detoxifies and processes our B vitamins. If we have a genetic variant, hence mutation, in certain genes that are coding or giving that programming information to that MTHFR for detoxification and all of the other points in which MTHFR is important for. If there is a mutation in that, that can lead to a lot of problems. Maybe low mood, maybe anxiety. There's a lot of different things that can happen if the body isn't properly detoxifying. So, say for example, we go and we do our MTHFR test and it comes back and shows, yes, we do indeed have this genetic variant. What can we do now? We can't change our genes. We can't just swap it out and put a new gene in. That doesn't work. But what we now know is, hey, maybe our body doesn't do really well with utilizing standard B vitamins. The body just can't process it down because there's this, remember, the program itself that's directing that gene isn't working right. So, how can we go around that? Well, then we take activated B vitamins, things like methylcobalamin as opposed to cyanocobalamin. For B12, we would take methylfolate as opposed to folic acid. These are ways to skirt around these different mutations, but it can give us a lot of insight. So, we have all of these wonderful ways in which you can assess your overall health, and it's very, very simple. It is a simple cheek swab test. So, you purchase the test from us, you get the test kit, cheek swab, put it in the envelope, off in the mail, goes to our lab in Oregon, and from there, it's usually about a 5 to 7 day turnaround. We have your genetic results, and then we can give you better guidance as to what you can be doing. So, say for example, one of my favorite tests that we actually offer is the cellular aging because I'm all about anti aging. So, The cellular aging is actually looking at the chronological age versus the actual age that's occurring within the end caps. So when we think about our chromosomes, so you have these end caps, the telomeres. So if those are starting to shrink down, not a good thing. If they are shrinking down, then that actually shows that we're aging at a rapid rate. So if you do this test, and ideally you want to have the same end cap shrinkage as you do with the age. So, but say for example, you do this test and it comes back and you say, "Oh my gosh, this is showing that I'm, 65 years old, but I'm really only 50 years old." Well, that tells you you need to make some adjustments. We need to start adding in some resveratrol every day, the resveratrol max at that point in time, and we have other my, lifestyle modifications that we definitely need to start to do. So, adhering to that Mediterranean diet, starting a little exercise program, making sure that we have adequate nutrients on a regular basis. So, the cellular aging test, super duper cool. But we also have tests that assess your risk for osteoporosis, osteopenia, the rate at which your body is absorbing calcium, so our bone health test. We have our cardiac panel, which is looking for different indications in terms of genes where potentially you may be at a greater risk for the development of different cardiovascular diseases. So, or strokes, heart attacks, these are things that, hey, if we find out that our gene is misprogrammed, might be good to know. And then we can make those adjustments in terms of our lifestyle modifications and the supplements that we are taking. So it's looking at key things, the way that the body processes cholesterol, for example. These are important things to know. We have our celiac test, which is looking to see if there is a misprogramming of the genetic information when it comes to the way that your body is actually managing the breakdown of gluten. So that's a really interesting gene test as well. We have our weight management for a lot of people. Maybe you've struggled and you said, I've tried different diets and nothing ever seems to work. Hey, maybe it's your genes. And if we know that, then we can try to target the appropriate exercise, the appropriate nutrients, the appropriate diet that will gain you more success if we know more about what is actually happening with our body's computer programming system. This is why it's so great. We have the mood and energy. So when I talked about the MTHFR pathway, for example, so this is looking at the methylation pathway with B vitamins, but it is also looking at COMT, which is really important because this is the way that your different neurotransmitters actually break down. So looking at dopamine and norepinephrine. So much information, I'm telling you. And it's so easy to do these tests. So whether we're looking and screening out for our risk for heart attacks, strokes, Alzheimer's disease, whether we're, curious about overall nutritional deficiencies. Hey, does my body not process iron right? Maybe my body doesn't do well with processing B12. Maybe I should know these things. Maybe my genes are going to tell me that. And so that's why doing these tests can give you so much information. Like I said, we can't swap out our genes, we're stuck with them. But what we can do is we can work around those defects. And being that I am a genetics fanatic, I think these tests are absolutely just some of the coolest things that you can do to really just know more about, it's kind of like when your computer kind of goes awry. You want to try to figure out what's wrong. Well, same thing when we think about our human body. We have this computer system, we have that motherboard, we want to know where is the issue and can we go around, skirt around that so we can optimize our overall health and wellness. So I will be back with you in a few more days. I definitely encourage you to go to our website though and check out our genetic tests. And we have really wonderful specials on those. It's so quick, so easy, tells you so much about your overall risks as well as just your overall health. And if anything, do the cellular aging test. That one's super duper cool. And as I mentioned, I'll be back in a few more days to talk about more wonderful formulations brought to you by Invite Health. Thank you.